Hi there, Salve. I'm Emily, the host of Latin Storytime, where I help you introduce your child to the Latin language through diglot or two language forms of classic children's stories. To get notifications of the next time I release an episode, you can click the subscribe button down below and the bell button. Or you can also sign up for our email list. And when you sign up for the email list, you'll also get access to the free parents guide, which includes a vocabulary list and ways that you can extend your child's learning throughout the week. Now, as a parent, you're probably already familiar with how important it is to have good books at home to help build your child's literacy. And this is true for any language, not just your native language. So as your child is learning Latin, it's going to help your child's Latin literacy to have some good Latin books at home for you to read with your child and later for your child to read on their own. So I want to highlight some of those books for you. And the first one I want to highlight today is the Usborne First Thousand Words in Latin. Now, I have fantastic memories of Usborne books from my childhood. There are a couple key ones like the Time Traveler series and a few others that I am looking forward to sharing with my own child because I just spent hours flipping through them as a kid. And one of the things that makes Usborne books really great are the illustrations. I love the illustrations that they include. They have scenes here, like this is a toy shop, where your child can see the objects in context. And they have a lot of these 2-page large image spreads. And then around the border, you see the individual little objects from the picture with the Latin words. And this creates a really natural way for you to do a seek and find activity with your child where you can introduce a few of the words to them and then ask them, where is this object? Or where is, for example, Agni here. Agni, the Agni go ba, right? You can ask, where are Agni? Here are Agni. And that way they get some practice with hearing the words and finding them and connecting the words with the ideas. And then there are also category pages. For example, here's days of the week, in addition to those big image spreads that I've showed you. At the very back, very valuable, is the full glossary or word list with the pronunciation guide at the top. So if there's ever a time, and this has happened to me when I'm flipping through, where you find an image and you're not quite sure which English word it's supposed to represent, you can flip back and it can be really clear to you what they intend there. So that's really valuable. And they have a whole series of these. So if Latin isn't the only language that your child is learning right now, you can get this in other languages as well. And I've linked those down below if you want to take a look at these. And they even have one in English too, if you just want to help your baby or toddler start to learn this language. Now that brings me to, what's the value of a book like this? Obviously there's no story involved, but it creates a great way for your child to learn vocabulary outside of flashcards. You know, especially when you're teaching little ones, you can't use flashcards because they don't know how to read yet. And you want to be able to have something pleasant for them to look at while they're learning their language. They do enjoy looking at these pictures and identifying words that they know and practicing words that they don't know. So this is a great tool at the beginning of your child's Latin journey. Now, this does bring me to the one limitation of this book. And if you already know Latin, I can just really simply tell you that the problem is that this book doesn't include the principal parts for all of the words. Now, that's not a big deal when you're just starting out with vocabulary, but if you want to produce all of the forms and produce them correctly, this book will not be the end-all be-all of your Latin study. If you're not familiar with what I mean by principal parts, let me explain it to you this way. An English book could have a picture of a goose and then the word goose underneath it. And you'd be able to teach a child that that animal is a goose. What you wouldn't be able to teach the child is how to talk about multiple of that animal, right? Because one is a goose, but multiple are geese. So if you're a non-native language speaker and you're using that book to teach your child that language, you might end up saying a sentence like, the two goose flew over the lake. Now, even a native speaker will be able to understand what you've meant, but it's not proper English, and it could get you in situations where you're meaning to talk about multiple geese, but you only say one goose, and it does get confusing. In Latin, it's even more critical that you use the proper forms, because the forms, or the endings of the words, dictate how the words function in the sentence and dictate a lot more of the meaning than they do in English. And so without knowing all of the principal parts of canis, which in this case is just two, it's not that many, you won't be able to know how to make the proper forms. And so you won't be able to talk about the word in any other context besides, here is canis, this is canis, canis does something. And that's great for beginning, but what I want to tell you is that later on you're going to need other resources to help you fill in the gaps. But as a great introductory text, this is highly recommended. I have linked it down below, and I hope that you enjoy reading this with your child, flipping through it, and letting it be a good starting point for your Latin language learning. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time. Bye.